Well, hey, welcome to Crossroads and Catalyst, the podcast with Shanita B. I am your host. This is where we discuss the thoughtful, wise, and strategic perspective at a crossroads can be the catalyst for change. So tell me something. Is your personality working harder than you are? And more specifically, what I mean by that is it working for you or against you? Today's episode, we're going to focus on personality because it really does shape how we interact, both professionally and personally in different settings. And I want us to dive a little bit deeper into that. Do y'all remember years and years ago the old Right Business School commercial that aired that showcased an interviewer and an interviewee, in a brief exchange. And every time the young lady was posed a question by the interviewer, she would ask her a question about some technical skills. And the only response that the interviewee could give was, well, no, but I have a brilliant personality. Well, I think that, of course, times have changed, but if you look back, I don't know how long ago that was, maybe 30 years or so, personality didn't seem to be all that big of a deal. But because things have changed in our society and in our culture, people are more concerned about personality because of how it impacts people in the workplace. When you look at today's economy and environment, you have a lot more people who are interested in understanding if you're a good fit. And having I'm not going to say the personality, but having specific characteristics or traits is likely going to help you and assist you in your career, and the lack thereof can have the opposite effect. So, if you're one who is difficult or argumentative, or maybe you're unable to think outside of the box, or be an extrovert and really be one who is sociable in the workplace, you depending on the job and depending on the organization, you might find it detrimental to your overall career and that you might not be able to move forward because it's just not a good fit. It's just not working out. And I think that to some degree, it's a good thing that time has changed, whereby personality does matter. But we also definitely want to make sure that we have a good balance between the technical skill and the soft skill. So, for today's conversation, I'm defining personality as the unique mix of traits and behaviors that shape how we work, interact with others, and navigate workplace challenges. And so we're just going to go ahead and jump right on in and talk about, why does personality matter? Well, everyone has communication skills, but everybody does not have good communication skills. And I'm sure that everyone who is listening or watching this can think to a time or many times where you have had conversations with people, or read or sent emails to people, and the message did not get conveyed. And the reason why that's so important is because communication does not take place until both people, both sides of that transaction, understand what is being conveyed. So while you have an idea in mind as to what you're wanting the recipient to understand, if the recipient does not understand it, then you've not communicated effectively. And so it matters because a lot of things are riding on whether or not you can communicate in a way that helps to move things along, whether that's to your colleagues or to your manager. And so that's why it's important that we understand how our personality impacts that. It's definitely going to define how you handle stress and conflict. Stress and conflict are some things that are pretty much innate in the workspace because depending on your processes, your involvement with your boss, the type of work that you're doing, if you're public facing or if you're just interdepartmentally working, your personality is going to impact your level of stress and conflict because you might be more prone or inclined towards stress and conflict. Again, if you're a personality type that shies away from conflict, well, you're still going to have to deal with the conflict. You just might not deal with it head on with someone else. You're going to deal with it internally, which is not good either. And it's certainly going to impact how you approach problem solving and decision making. You have some people who are really quick at and very decisive, and that might be a skill that is required for particular job. Well, if you're in that job and you're not quick and decisive and you kind of take your time and delay and mull over things and you drive uh on a Sunday, you drive every day like it's a Sunday afternoon and you're supposed to be in the fast lane, you're probably going to have some difficulty. And even as an example, I had someone on my team years ago who was very analytical and they were good at analysis. They were good at building spreadsheets. But when it came to making a decision, it was like pulling teeth. This person would not make a decision. And if when they finally did make a decision, it was oftentimes at the last minute and they struggled. I could tell that they struggled. And it did not matter how many times I reiterated to this person, hey, look, you have autonomy to make the decision. I trust your judgment. You have my support. And even if your decision doesn't result in the outcomes that we anticipate or are expecting, it's okay because we all make mistakes. It did not matter. He continued in that pattern of behavior. And that had more to do with his personality rather than the work. So he was just not a good fit in that regard. He could do everything else, but that one aspect of the job that required him to make a decision and be and act quickly, he couldn't do it. It just was not within him to do so. He wasn't wired that way. And so it made it a challenge even to manage him or to lead him because it didn't matter how much I reiterated to him that he had support and that he was not going to be in trouble per se. He just continued in that same pattern of behavior. And finally, when we think about why personality matters at work, it's definitely going to impact how you respond to feedback and how you adapt to change. I have worked with many people in the workplace who did not adapt to change well and or did not receive feedback well. As far as adapting to change, it didn't matter what the change was. I have hired people into positions who thought that they were going to do maybe one focus on one particular task, but because I recognized that they had a certain skill set and I knew that they could excel, I gave them something different to do. And I think that they probably cursed me uh, while they were learning it. But after some time, they realized, oh, yeah, I'm really good at this. And I'm glad that you gave me this particular thing to do. Well, I saw it. They didn't necessarily see it, but I'm glad that we were able to come to a consensus that it actually was a good fit. And I've also worked with other people who I had to drag them kicking and screaming to change even a formula on a spreadsheet. Now, that's not a stretch. And I had to think of creative ways and inventive ways to try to bring them along with the change that we needed because I didn't want them to be left behind, but I also didn't want them to be dissatisfied. But again, it goes back to what are we inclined toward? What are we naturally inclined to do in our work environment? And this person was naturally inclined to resist change. It didn't matter even that the change was going to be helpful, that it was going to make things more efficient, and that it was going to be reducing down, let's say, 10 clicks down to two. Didn't matter. They went kicking and screaming. And again, it was not until after that they realized, oh well, yes, this is a better way to do things. So this is why it's extremely important that you understand who you are, especially as it relates to the workplace, because you have to work with these people. Some of these are going to be people you like, some of these are going to be people who you dislike. And if you know who you are and how you generally respond in different scenarios, you will be better able to plan how you will engage people. Again, whether you like them or dislike them. And that takes me to different things that we can use to help us to understand our personalities. Now, of course, this does not alleviate us from looking at feedback that we've received from our managers, maybe on performance evaluations, or maybe some, I don't know, some extenuating circumstance came up and you had to hear something that you really didn't like because of that particular circumstance. better understanding ourselves will help us to hedge or leverage our skills, whether those are the technical or the hard skill, excuse me, the technical or the soft skills, so that we can navigate these crossroads as we encounter them. Because none of us really wants to be there, but it behooves us to look within and do some self-reflection so that we can, strategize and respond accordingly. Now, I'm a I'm a big fan of taking personality assessments because again, it's just one tool in the box that you can use to really help you to hone in on some things that maybe you didn't even realize were an issue. So, how important it is to have some self-awareness is at the top of the list. That is like a number one priority. That is a must that every one of us needs to recognize. And again, going back to these personality assessments, there are many that are on the market. A lot of them are scientific and have a lot of research behind them. And so I'm just going to list a few of these because, again, I think that they're extremely helpful and um, they are very insightful. So, one of the first ones that I took was the Myers-Briggs personality assessment. And the true name of it is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI. And this one is an assessment that qualifies or quantifies the personality types into about 16 different categories. So they ask you or give you a bunch of statements and several different options that you select that are most applicable to you. And at the end of the assessment, they give you these four acronyms that determine essentially what your personality type is. And then it gives you the strengths and the areas of weakness or the things that you're prone to as a result of this particular personality type. And so it's a really very helpful in helping you to understand yourself. And when I first took this, and this was a number of years ago, I thought that it was spot on. And I have remembered that particular personality assessment because I knew that if if there was an assessment that could help me to hone in on certain things that I needed to focus on and kind of underscore some of the things that I already knew, then it was an encouragement to me that I should continue to try to work on those things which I knew were problematic for me in my engagements with people, whether that was personal or professional. So that's just one. So then another one is the True Colors assessment. This is one that I actually took quite recently. A friend recommended it to me. And this one is based on personality types that are grouped into four different colors. And those colors are blue, green, gold, and orange. So, blue, as you might guess, is one that is probably more feeling related. It's relationship oriented, empathetic, and creative. And then green is analytical, independent, and problem solving. Gold is organized, responsible, and structured, and orange is energetic, spontaneous, and adaptable. And I'm sure you could probably guess, like I've mentioned in the intro, that I have an accounting degree and a CPA license. So that pretty much makes me a pretty structured and analytical type person. So my number one highlight in that particular category was green. Um, and so what these personality assessments are designed to do, again, is to help you understand what you have inclinations toward, but they also help you to understand the type of jobs that might be a good fit for your personality. And this is really where it gets interesting because not only do you get to see in some of these assessments what category you fit your personality fits into, but what jobs might actually be high on the list. And so it's worth a look and it's worth taking the time to do an assessment. A couple of other ones here that I've heard of. One that I've heard of, but I hadn't tried it, the Big Five Ocean, which is an acronym for the five different primary traits that are used for the personality category. So you have openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And then finally, the five voices. Now, I did say that I had taken the True Colors here recently, but as a part of my former job, I participated in some coaching for the entire team, and the Five Voices assessment was a part of that coaching. And it is a simplification of the Myers Briggs personality assessment, and they group people into five types. So you have the nurturer, the creator, the guardian, the connector, and the pioneer. And I think what was interesting about that particular one is because on the team that was that I was in, that was, you know, going through this process of these assessments, I thought that it was very interesting that more people were not a pioneer as opposed to some of the other personality traits. And so what that just shows is even though you have a particular personality trait, it doesn't always have to pigeonhole you into a particular occupation. So again, that was pretty fun to do that, and then compare notes with my colleagues. So then, moving on, when we think about personality and career challenges, this is where the crux of the matter is, because sometimes we find that we're having some difficulty navigating the workplace because of our personality or someone else's personality. If it's our personality that's causing the hindrance, it really behooves us, again, to take the time to really understand some of the feedback that's been provided. Was that true? Were the people who were providing that feedback, were they being honest with us? Do we think that they had our best interest in mind? And, to be sure, we're really smart people. And I think that we can recognize when we have done something or said something that was either in alignment with our character and our personality or out of alignment with our character and our personality. So if it comes down to a situation where you something has recently happened or a number of things have recently occurred and we are at the center of it or we are always the ones who are in the middle of it, we really do need to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what is it that I need to do differently to obtain a better outcome? And maybe it does result in trying to find another job. But if that's not an option for you, well, then it's going to work better for you if you confront that scenario head on. And yes, I also recognize that not all of us are in the most optimal circumstances whereby it would be easy to do that. Because I know that there are people in positions who do not have great personalities, but they've been in a position for quite some time. We don't know if they've earned it or if they just knew somebody, whatever the case may be. They have some level of authority over your job. And really, all you can do is try to work within the situation until you can find an out. But that's going to also depend upon how you handle the stress and the conflict. You're going to have to navigate that. And what you're going to have to also do is just work with somebody who can help to give you some advice and counsel on how to deal with that. But as it relates specifically to particular job functions, if you are an introvert and you're in a position that requires you to do presentations in front of large groups, or you're public facing to some degree and you don't like it, then you'll recognize after doing a personality assessment or even after thinking about it considerably that this is not a good fit. And so you want to start taking the action, the appropriate level of action to put yourself in a better position so that you don't have the stress that's going to be related to continuing to do a job that is not fit for you. And, also when we think about it, personality assessments, they're good for a host of things. And understanding ourselves better is always going to be a help to us. And it's going to be a help to the people that we work with because the better you know yourself, then you can deal with things head on and you can help to prepare people that this is I know that I'm like this and please bear with me. If you see that I've done something or I've stepped out of line or I'm not doing something correctly, please provide me feedback. And when you take these assessments, yay that you have some strengths because all of us have strengths and we should be glad about that. But don't miss the blind spots and don't be quick to dismiss the characteristics that are not putting you in the best light. You're going to show a level of maturity if you can handle looking through some of those characteristics and recognizing, oh yeah, I do that and I really need to do some work so that I can curb those characteristics, curb those behaviors because they're not helping in the long run. Finally, I just want you to take seriously the impact and the influence that your personality has on other people because it is that important. I heard a speaker, this was months ago, and I think that his company is called Employalty. So I want to make sure that I give credit where credit is due. But he made a statement and everybody laughed at it, but I think because it was so true, it stuck. It was funny and it was true, so it stuck. And this gentleman basically said that if you're a leader and your team and you have a group of people that you're leading, whether it's one or several, when they go home and they have dinner and they're conversing, you may very well be the topic of discussion. What kind of conversations do you want your team members to have about you? Maybe you're not in a position of leadership. Maybe you are the team member who's having the conversation about the boss, and maybe the boss is not so good. Regardless of which one of those positions you're in, you want, if someone else is talking, you want them to mention good things. So you could be the the employee that has the attitude, or you could be the boss that has the attitude who's being discussed at night. You choose how you're discussed. And, going back to what employers are looking for, they want both the technical and the soft skills. And I saw something recently on social media that a gentleman posted, and he's another podcaster. I believe the Diary of a CEO, I believe is what the name of it is. But there was a post that he made, and I thought it was very applicable. And he says, I've hired over 3,000 people in the last 5 years. The most important thing I've learned is that ability and experience prove to be less important than finding people who are genuinely kind, empathetic, and positive. It's easier to teach new skills than it is to unteach old toxic behaviors. Now, again, this is coming from someone who has hired a lot of people over the course of uh, his businesses. And I agree with the vast majority of that, but I can tell you having some technical skills is definitely going to be helpful. And I have sat in interviews with people who had great personalities, but they lacked the technical skills. And I've sat in interviews where it was the opposite. They had great technical skills, but they lacked the personality. And because I like panel interviews, I like to interview and I also like to have my team interview. It was very obvious that both sets of skills were extremely important to the team because my motto is if my team members have to work with this person, they have to sit with this person in the same open space. It's really important that they think that the person is a good fit. Well, they want both. They don't want you to come to the party with just one set of skills. They think that it's important that you have both. So I reiterate to you, take the time to take an assessment or take two assessments and do some comparing. Take some notes and look at the strengths and see how you can leverage that to enhance your profile and uh, to promote yourself. But also look at those weaknesses and see what you can do to mitigate that. And I would encourage you to not only take the assessment or two, but I would encourage you to do it with colleagues, trusted colleagues, or friends because they will be honest with you and they will help to hold you accountable. And this is what I like to call the identity exchange. You want to sit down and you want to ask each other questions about taking those assessments and if they think that the results are what they anticipated. And if you're interested in hosting an identity exchange event with your colleagues and or close friends, then send an email to me. I'll be more than happy to send you a format that you can use for this purpose. It'll just help to open up the conversation, and it also has a game that you can play just to add a little bit of fun to it. And I don't want to miss mentioning that there are a number of free assessments that you can use for this purpose, and they are specifically career oriented. So they'll help you to determine if the work that you're doing is a good fit, and it'll show you what kind of work might be a really good fit for your personality. One is called ONET, and it's at mynextmove.org. Mynextmove.org. This is actually free from the Department of Labor. And then the other one is Holland Codes, and this is thecareerproject.org. Thecareerproject.org. And if you really want to know the truth about your personality or some aspects of your personality, find a teenager or a young person who really knows you. They will tell you the truth. And you might not like it, but sometimes you might have to be hurt a little bit. Uh, Proverbs tells us the wounds of a friend can be trusted. So people who really care about you will tell you the truth even if it hurts. And that's really what it comes down to. So, take this and take it to the next step, and then formulate a plan as to how you again can leverage those strengths, and how you can enhance, or not enhance, how you can mitigate those weaknesses. And then finally, if you have a story that you would like to share with me about how your personality has either helped or hindered you, I would like to hear about it. I'd like for you to send me an email at theshanita.brown@gmail.com. Shanita is spelled Shenita. So theshanita.brown@gmail.com. And let me know about it. And you might just hear about it on one of our future podcasts. And we have come to the conclusion of this episode. And so I want you to remember, every decision is a call for action, and every challenge fuels the journey. Just keep going.